Hi everybody.
Hi.
How are you? Thank you very much for coming. Oh, sorry. Yes, Jodie's going to start.
I am. So hello everyone, many friends in the room, so really good to see you and to welcome you to New South Wales Parliament. As all of you know, we have a very strong relationship with the Chinese Australian community. I see many of you at many of the events I attend, and you know in particular the significance of the communities that all of us represent, including Chris and I in Cogra and in Berwick. Today is an opportunity for you to meet our new leader of the Labor Party, Michael Daley, and also to ask questions of us as a Labor Party in terms of our priorities for the Chinese Australian community. Michael's going to speak through this further. I do want to introduce my colleagues. So Alan is standing as the candidate for Epping. You know this amazing man, of course. Everybody knows Ernest, our dear friend Ernest. We've got Steve, who's the member for Rockdale, of course Chris, who's the member for Cogra, Joe, who's the member for Sunhill, and Lucy, who's standing as the candidate for Oatley. Now, all of us either represent or seek to represent a Chinese Australian community. As you know, there are more than 500,000 Chinese Australians living in New South Wales. I think all of you know the commitment that I have to the community. And so it is important for us at the end of the first week of Michael as leader of the Labor Party here in New South Wales, that the first media conference we have is with the Chinese Australian community. So I want to introduce to you Michael Daley, leader of the opposition, leader of the Labor Party, and of course the member for Maroubra.
Well, thank you very much, Jodie, and thank you all for coming today. Yes, as Jodie said, this has been a week of firsts for me, having been elected as leader on Saturday. And so as we got the team together and assembled and mapped out a plan for the week, we said we've got to call in some ethnic communities to talk to them. And I said, let's make sure the Chinese community are the first. So the Chinese community are the first ones to come and meet me as new leader of the Labor Party, and thank you very much for that. As Jodie said, I'm the member for Maroubra. I took over from Bob Carr in 2005, and I have to send a message to Bob from all of you. He said in his usual way, "Tell my Chinese friends I said hello." So, hello from Bob. And when I was elected as member for Maroubra in 2005, the Chinese community made up about 1.8% of my electorate. It's now 12 and continuing to increase. And thank you for that. You've made our area a better home. It's a more vibrant place. And so it's very fitting that you're the first community to come and visit us this week in my first week of leadership. You know, we talk about ethnic communities, the Chinese community, the Arabic community, Turkish community, but there's really just one community. There's just us. And we're all living together in Sydney, I think what is the best city in the world. And we all want the same thing for each other. We want a world-class education system. You know, probably better than anyone, having practiced for not centuries, but millennia, the mantra that the best way to improve oneself is through education. You know better than anyone the strength of an education for your children, and so we intend as a Labor government in March to make sure that you and your children get the best education system in the world. Of course, you all know as well that a health system is vital, particularly to our older people. It's not just about keeping people living a long time and having long and healthy lives. It's also about that dignity of the older years. So we will continue to deliver on health and education, which have been traditionally two very strong points for the Labor Party. We will fight the election on those two battlegrounds because they are two areas of public policy that have been neglected by the Federal government. And of course, transport. And we made a great announcement this week that Jodie worked up, which I'm sure you saw, but if you haven't, I'll just give you a very quick summary. All school children will have free travel on all modes of public transport on the Opal system, no matter where you live, what time of day you're travelling, or where you're going. And that's something we're very proud of, an early announcement on transport from the prospective Daley government. I just want to thank these MPs here. They're always coming in to my office when I was a deputy leader, and I'm sure they'll drive me more crazy now advocating for the needs and wants of the Chinese community. But before I close, I just want to pay tribute to Ernest Wong. Ernest has been an outstanding member of this place. We're sad to see him go. Politics can be a brutal game sometimes, but I spoke to Ernest this week and I said to Ernest, we'll have to make sure, work together to make sure you are not lost to public life in New South Wales, and we're determined to make sure he plays a very prominent role for the people of New South Wales. I also say on behalf of my entire team, but particularly on behalf of the MPs that are assembled here, we make this solemn commitment to you. No matter what happens in the campaign of the next 129 days, under no circumstances whatsoever will we deal in any way whatsoever with one nation. So thank you very much for being here. I'll ask Chris Minns, a member for Cobra, to say a few words.
Thanks, Michael. Look, I think the Chinese Australian community, which is distributed throughout the Sydney area, is notoriously, and I think in a positive way, a swing community. Sometimes they vote Labor and sometimes they vote for the coalition. And I think that's a positive thing because it means that that community really does drive both political parties to have the best policies for them, for their communities, for their families. And under a Daley-led Labor government, we will fight for every single Chinese Australian vote. We will go to the next election with fantastic public transport, public education and public healthcare policies. And we will make sure that the Chinese Australian community know that Labor stands for these important public services. And at the end of the day, after 8 years of a coalition government where every single one of those important public services have been run down, it's time for a Labor government to ensure that those that pay taxes and the Chinese Australian communities who are entrepreneurial, who work incredibly hard, pay an enormous amount of money to the New South Wales Treasury, deserve decent public services, and they're only going to get it under a Daley-led Labor government. And I'll say this about our leader, our parliamentary leader. It's not easy to be pro-multiculturalism. It's not easy to stand up for the Chinese community, particularly when you've got a leader like Pauline Hanson who's running around desperately demonising members of the Chinese community and trying to split Australians up. But our leader, Michael Daley, has pledged that we will not deal with one nation and we will never, ever countenance racism. That's what true multiculturalism is all about. That's what standing up for communities like the Chinese Australian community is all about. It takes guts and a little bit of courage, and that's what we will present to the people of New South Wales and in particular the Chinese Australian community at the upcoming election.
Thank you. I'm from People's Daily Online, and my first question is, this year commemorates the 200 years of Chinese migration to Australia. So what do you think the Chinese immigrant has contributed to the development of Australia? And my second question is, as a multicultural country, what do you think the role the Chinese immigrants play in the Australia's multiculturalism? Thank you.
I think that they contribute just a sense of genuineness. When I'm in the midst of Chinese people, they don't try and be something they're not. They're genuine, they're warm, what you see is what you get. And that's the basis of friendship. They're the people I like most. You don't have to second guess them, you know you can trust them. That's the biggest contribution Chinese people have made to Australia, just by being yourselves. A great sense of energy, entrepreneurship, as Chris said, great business people, taught us many lessons in business over the years. They've lifted the spirit of this nation, and this is just the beginning. It's a young country. 200 years is nothing, particularly given the ancient history of China and the civilization that you've held up as an example to all humanity for thousands and thousands of years. But I could speak all day about that, but thanks for the question.
From Australia, the media group, just that Victoria has signed out the MOU with the Chinese government in terms of the One Belt, One Road initiative. If you were the Premier, are you going to follow suit?
Look, you don't need to sign an MOU to have a really strong relationship and to foster cross-investment. But if I'm elected in March, no doubt you'll be knocking on my doors for me to follow suit, and I look forward to that visit. But you don't need an MOU to do that. We've had bilateral investment between the states and China, the states of Australia and China, and the nation of Australia and China without an MOU. I can't see where that won't continue, but I suspect you might be knocking on my door next March if I'm elected to try and put forward another view, and we'll have a chat about that then. But I'm open to all discussions. I won't shut the door, but what I won't do is use international relations in this parliament as a political tool, because some premiers in the past have, and I think that's demeaning to the multicultural communities of Australia who just want to be treated like everybody else. Great. Do we need anything else? Any photos or
Can I get
anything
a
like
photo?
that?
Ms. Daley?
Oh, sorry, Ernest.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Can you introduce your new shadow minister team, please?
Sorry.
New shadow minister team. Do you?
It's the same team.
Same team.
At the
Okay.
moment, I haven't got my feet under the desk yet. I'm on the phone till 11 o'clock at night and eating dinner at 11 o'clock at night while I'm on the phone. We're putting our team together in terms of staff, and when we get the office up and running, then I'll think about that. But there will be a very small variation. Look, I learned early on as a minister, because I was reshuffled. Every time you reshuffle people, they stop, because they have to pause and learn about their new portfolio. And we have 129 days left to the election, so we don't have time to stop. So it'll be minimal because there are a couple of vacancies, but look, we're sprinting at the moment. We are on the road at pace, and I want us to continue to stay at pace.